Well, hello, I'm Arshia Lokanwala, curator and art historian, and welcome you to another session of Behind the Scenes with the Artist in conjunction with an online exhibition, Living the New Normal, in these extraordinary times, curated for MASH India. I'm joined by Shalini Pasi, the founder and the patron of Shalini Pasi Art Foundation and MASH India, a digital platform that explores the intersection of architecture, art, craft, design, and fashion. I'm also excited to have with us Anita Dubey, an art historian and critic who turned artist and graduated with a BA in History of Art from the University of Delhi, the MFA in Art Criticism from the Faculty of Fine Art, Baroda. She was also the curator of the 2018 edition of the Kochi Muziris Biennale. Anita has shown widely internationally in several important exhibitions, including Difficult Love at the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art, Labyrinth at the Baudachi Lad Museum, After Midnight, Indian Modernism to Contemporary Art at the Queen's Museum, and several others. So you don't really need an introduction. And so Anita and Shalini, welcome. And also a big hello to all our viewers worldwide. Nice to see you here.
Hi, good.
So,
Lovely to see you
hello.
both. Hi.
Hi, Anjali. Hi.
Hi.
So Anita, in the context of the exhibition, the eyepieces metaphorically, for me, refer to the ever-present virus that forces a closer and vigilant examination of our life. This leads me to ask you the most important question. I think the viewers would also like to know. What attracted you to the votive eye, a devotional object, and how did this whole body of work emerge?
See, I mean, it's a lot to do with actually being completely mesmerized by the object itself, which means the eye. So I walked into the Lalit Kala Academy. There was a show going on. There was one work by Gogi Saroj Pal, which had just one of these eyes in a glass, in a frame, and there was a glass, and then the eye was stuck on both sides. And when I saw that, I was like really struck by this little object, and I think from that, I think this is the thing, the fascinance, the thing of being totally struck by something, and therefore then the thing of exploring, and from that thing I went to the market in Chandni Chowk to find out about these eyes. They are only available in religious shops which sell religious goods. Okay, from various things, from idols to this and that, and these eyes are available. You'll be surprised in a variety of sizes, from I think 2 mm to maybe 3 inches. I'll show you in a bit. I'll show you these different sizes. So it's, as I said, it's to be struck by something, and then to so for me, it's not the fact that it's a religious object. For me, it's very much like a human being. It's a person looking at it. It's an eye which is not closing. It's an eye which is open 24 hours, which means what? It means that it's an eye which is alert, or it's an eye which is terrified, or it's an eye which is threatened. You know what I mean? So for me, it's the human things around an open eye that actually completely get involved when I start to work with it, right? So although I was able to get these eyes from a shop which is selling votive things, the whole idea was that, why would this eye only belong to the gods? Why should, I think I've said it many times also earlier, that the whole challenge is that why should divinity, why belong only to the gods? We need it, human beings need it. And so it's actually snatching divinity from gods and saying that, it's human. We are, the divinity lies in human beings. So to bring it down to the secular order, rather from the religious order, you understand that? Yeah. So that's been the main thing, which is why I needed many, yeah? And which is why, when I was in Chandni Chowk, I mean, most people buy only 2, to put in an idol, okay? Yeah? So you can't buy quantities over there. So people said that if you want a large quantity, you have to go to Nath Dwara, which is in Rajasthan, yeah? So I went to Nathdwara. I took a train, you know.
Oh, okay.
I took a I traveled, and that's actually been recorded in the video Noor Muhammad when I'm talking about that journey of mine. But in the context of Noor, yeah, I'm talking about that journey of mine. So I took a Shatabdi to Ajmer, then I took a taxi to Nathdwara and tried to find out where these things are. And went. And the surprising thing is that it's actually just cottage industries. You know, I thought there'll be a factory or something like that, but there's no such thing. It's small families, and it's a business which is handed over from father to son, and only some few families actually in their backyard they make all these eyes, and they go all over the country. In the small town, people buy them just two eyes to put on their idol. So as I mean, I hope it's clear that it's actually to bring to and for me, so each eye actually is like a human being. It's the speciality of a human being, I mean, so beautiful, because when I hold it in my hand, it's so beautiful an object, and it's so striking an object. It's so alive an object, it's an object which you can't, I can't find another alive object like this. And also it tells you that, you have to give credit to a tradition which invented an object like this, After all, this is a found object for me, How did just an eye, imagine from a whole body, from a whole human being, to abstract something like a single eye. And with that much energy and that much life, absolutely like, what should I say? Distilled and put into this little object, So every time I hold it, I was like, you get that energy of life from it, and it's a terrific material. I mean, there isn't another material which every time, and the only way that you can use it also is to hold each one in your hand with a lot of love and care. And I mean, just the way people, you wipe it, you clean it, and you hold it in your hand, and then you stick it on the wall, or you stick it on your hand, or whatever. But each eye is there. So in that sense, each person loved, caressed, that kind of a thing. I mean, I kind of find that thing really interesting.
Fantastic. Yeah. Shalini, you had a question.
Yeah. So Anita, in the eyes photos, you use votive eyes on your own body, which were then photographed. What does the medium of photography contribute to your artistic exploration of using these votive eyes?
See, I don't know about, my thing is that I work from, it's an internal thing, I had been doing some drawings with the eyes. First work I made is in the corner, right? That's the most, but I was, I mean, so the first thing I did with the eyes is to make that corner in the architectural, in a room. Because I was in the afternoons, I was sleeping, and suddenly I saw this. In the corner of the room that I was sleeping in, I suddenly saw these eyes in that corner, and only thing I had to do is then to go get the eyes and fix it in a gallery, right? But it's a vision that came to me while one in afternoon sleeping. So then I did a couple of drawings on the walls, and then the whole thing was that, okay, so it's still there. It's not, I mean, I'm not implicated. It's not on my body, right? And so it's interesting that I wanted my body implicated in this whole thing. It's almost as if that, okay, you're talking about each eye as a human being, and then you're making some drawings with it on the wall. But how about taking it on your body? So you know what I mean? So the even in terms of concept, even let's say as a metaphor, it's a difficult thing, yeah. Even if symbolically, to take everything on your body. And I mean, people and and crowds and things like that. That was a whole kind of a thing, It's just pushing yourself into another thing. And also, look, so the eye photos came about. My friend C.K. Rajan was with me at home, and I said that let's do something with the eyes on my hands, and will you shoot? He said, he's Raja is an amateur and an amateur photographer. I mean, he never shot in his life. So I said, look, Raja, just I'll tell you, I load the camera, I'll tell you what to do. You just have to click the button, you know. So he said, okay, I'll do that, Anita. Right. So then, you know, so then the thing is, I put Fevicol in my hands. It's actually also like Mehndi, you know. I'm referencing many traditions that already exist.
Right.
Because it's also, I have a desire that my work is able to have a language that cuts across, in that sense, art education, that people can read it. Ordinary people will be able to access it from their own experiences of life, right? So a lot of people have this experience of, you know, wearing mehndi on their hands and all that. So these are experiences people have. So when, you know, when eyes are put on the hands, there will be a connection at a, what should you say, at the level of affect, which will make people enter into the work and be able to you know, not only on the one hand enjoy it, on one hand be troubled by it, by what it's also suggesting, because it's not really mehndi, it's also suggesting many other things. So things like that. And then, you know, so the photos are an interesting thing, because, you know, it's like, in the studio it was performative. Yeah, I put all these eyes on my hands, and I told Raja, come close, you know, click like that. So, you know, I was like, I'm performing these gestures, and Rajan was clicking. Okay, but we don't know what actually, you know, because I'm not behind the camera, so I really don't know what's happening. Okay,
Yeah.
now when you give it to the you know, you give it to processing that film. Okay, and when the film is processed, you get some strange things, because then that's the material. One thing is the performative aspect of making a work, but the result is not there. The photograph comes only when you have the film in your hand. Okay, and when you have the film in your hand, so many strange things happen, that actually the body of work actually happened because of the film, not because of the thing. Because it's not that I programmed it, ki this gesture will be followed by that gesture. No, I made random gestures in the studio. Random photographs were clicked, like, you know, 2 rolls were clicked only. Okay, and out of those 2 rolls, when the film was processed, I could see strange things happening over there. For example, Arshia, the thing that is on the card, you know, via negativa. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I saw that, see, because this eye has a black pupil, right? It's a black pupil. Yeah, this.
Yeah.
Let me show you this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see, this object has a black. Can you see? Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that that pupil is black. Now, in the negative of the photo, what happens is that the black becomes white. Hello. When I saw that, and I just put this eye on my mouth, and, you know, the photograph was taken. But when the negative came, I was like, my God, you know, is it possible that a moon can be inside your mouth? I mean, it was like, so it's like almost a cosmic image, which is an accident. Hello, it's not planned at all. Actually, a lot of my work is not planned at all. It's a series of things, but I'm able to read when the thing occurs. When I get the negative, I mean, I can understand what it's leading to. What are the possibilities of that image? That is something that I can understand, and then you work on that. So in the case of Via Negativa, I didn't go positive. I printed the negative as a negative image. It's a process that allows you to do that. But I said, my God, no, how can we go positive with this lot of thing? We'll go keep it as negative. And also then the title, you know, that it's via the negative that you arrive at the meaning of things, you know. So it's so interesting. This is what I find fascinating, actually. The fact that, you know, it's so many unexpected things happen, and that you arrive, especially in this particular work, that you arrive at something very profound through negativity, and also literally via the negative of film. So, you know, it's like that. I mean, it's all these kind of things mix up, and produce some, you know, also keeps you engaged in the making of work. One more thing I want to say about this. So, and that's interesting that, you know, in another incident, my thumb was cut, because Rajan framed it in such a way that the frame, you know, the thumb got cut. And I was like, when I got the thing, I called him, and, you know, he was in Hyderabad then, and I said, Raja, I mean, you couldn't frame it properly, the handle got cut and all that, you know. So the thumb was cut. But later on, when I was looking at that image, and I thought, my God, but takes you to the story of Eklavya, where Bhishma said that you cut off your thumb because he was a Dalit or poor boy who became a very skilled archer and who would compete with the sons of the king. So I mean, I know these stories, and when even these accidents happen, you can so this is the way work actually happens. This is the way, for me, work happens, that these connections are made visually as well as metaphorically, through stories, through things and life, and then work can you can make a work like that.
No, that's beautiful, because actually I was going to ask you about this whole thing of mythology in your work, especially in Eklavya, and so do you have a preconceived idea? But apparently not.
No, Arshia. Arshia, the thing is that I know these stories. I know many of the all those material, but it's all suggested by the image and accidents and chance and things like that. I mean, you can't. So I work a lot with chance and the suggestions that are there, and then you can sort of of course work on it and make the connection. And it would be nice, because I've always felt that a lot of, I mean, especially this is because of our art education, that, it removes us from these stories, that, you're not supposed to have links with mythology or religion or things, because all these stories are implicated via religion, right? Yeah. But, my thing is that, that's material. That's material. An artist can take it anywhere. And we should never shy away from material, because this is the material that is closest to people's imagination, actually. And if we want to reach an audience which is not just the art educated audience, then it would be great if we can actually and I must say that it's the most difficult material to deal with, because it's loaded. It's a very loaded material, and we must do it with a lot of care. As well as sensitivity to the fact that just this the artistic arrogance of dealing with mythic material, which is public property. You can't, I believe, I mean, in my case, I believe that you can't have a certain kind of an artistic arrogance in this case, where you don't take it seriously, where you just play with it. Irreverence is great. I mean, I use, as that, I mean, I've used the votive eyes in the corner, which is like a pubic corner, right? So you can be irreverent, you can be subversive, but still a certain amount of care and and that's why, I mean, for me, I've always said it, that the sacred is very important. If the profane is important, the sacred is equally important, and that's the way you can deal with this material.
Absolutely. Sure. Shalini, did you have a question?
Yeah, sure. So all of the works in this series are in black and white, including the digital prints. Was there a particular reason you chose a monochrome color palette?
So I don't know, Shalini. That I can't say. At that point, there's something about black and white, let me tell you, because see, unnecessary details don't get into it. You understand that? Black and white pares things down to 100%. Two basic things and some tonalities. And actually that kind of heads, you get straight into your, it's got that kind of character. Color, what happens is too many other details enter into it, and therefore take away from what you're trying to. So it's a peculiar thing. I mean, just to get away from the subject, when I was actually shooting my meat words also, I didn't shoot it in color, which is, I mean, cutting meat and all that, there's blood and all that, but precisely because of the fetish element that color could involve, in that case, blood could, you can fetishize, on things like blood and all, and just to remove myself from, or to remove any viewer or any audience from that fetishistic element, I shot all those photographs also in black and white. So it's just because, you know, you want to pare down the unnecessary details. Yeah. No, I don't know when I'm going to do color.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me
So
to? Yeah.
yeah, you know, I had another. So what's also interesting, I was actually trying to share the, you know, the PDF of your photographic work, but I'm not able to do that. But one thing that I noticed is in, you know, the 4 works that we have in your iPhotos,
Yeah.
3 of them have actually, you know, they have this thing of doubling. So for example, and they have hands. So I'm just interested, you know, like, so for example, you know, the triptych in offering, the doubling
Yeah.
in sea creatures, and in remembering Eklavya, you have the same photograph that is repeated 9 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that, I think the quote that you have is really interesting. You say, the initial doubling became a multiplication of the same image, a fascinating, undecipherable script, a celebration of collectivity and marginality at the very site of exclusion. And I thought it was really interesting. And I was wondering, you know, about this whole idea of the double and the doubling, and, you know, also the idea of vision and seeing, because these are votivized. So
Yeah, actually, this is so interesting, you know. So these ideas have been around that, you know, that we have moved too much into, uh, you know, valorizing the gaze or the eye as in a sensory way in our societies and in the way society has been organized, and that other senses have gone to the background. So it's actually, as you can see that, you know, a lot of work is to do with connecting, you know. So I'm connecting touch with the gaze, or touch with the eye. Yeah, you see, because every time I'm holding an eye in my hand, so it's like the eye is being touched. So touch is so important, right? And the
yes,
peculiar connection of the touch as well as the gaze through the work. Then the other thing is that a single human being, yeah, I mean, if I've said many times that, you know, for me each eye is like a beautiful aspect of a human being, the, you know, the most vital, beautiful, living aspect of a human being in an essential way. Okay, let's say it's a but then, you know, all these things together, right? Because I mean, as we know, you know, with my you know, with my inclination towards, you know, Marxist ideas of, you know, the fact that, you know, you can't you know, if you, any idea, any change alone is nothing, you know. A single human being doesn't affect any real change. Real
yeah,
change only is affected by you know, groups of people, collectivity. So collective is the only way. And
the
also, it's a very
multiplication.
odd thing, if you will notice, you know, in some of the eye drawings that I've done, you know, on the walls, when a lot of eyes come together,
Yeah,
like a horde, it's very dangerous, you know. And I've said it in another context that it can either be revolutionary or fascist, you know, because
yeah,
the minute crowd and a mob is there, the chance for it to go on either, so it's on a cutting edge, you know. It can
yeah,
go either, and as we are seeing right in front of our eyes, and, you know,
yes,
society is actually, you know, showing us all these things from every day, and especially in the last couple of years, we are seeing it every day, that, you know, how mobs come together, how people can come together, and how certain energies can be released, you know,
right.
which an individual may not even recognize in themselves, but in the coming together of people are the release of energies which can be totally fascist, violent, everything. And yet this, you know, so, you know, this is such a paradoxical thing also, that so doubling, my thing is that not only doubling, you know, doubling is still a theory that we are, my thing is multiplicity, the multitude. That's what I'm really interested in, actually. And you know that, you know, the earlier eyes have this kind of a thing where people are, you know, you know, migrating from the interior, from villages, into cities. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, river disease is one work which has a black circle, which is always in a map. You know, you have a black circle, a dot, which indicates a big city, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So things just flowing as like a river into a city. And look at the situation now. You know, you have a complete reversal of this. You have, from that black dot, just a river going backwards. into going back. Look, people are just, it's so sad and shocking and sad beyond reason, you know. Anyway, so I just digressed into something else. But my thing is that not only doubling, it's multiplicity. And eklavya, because it's like, okay, if you cut off one person's thumb, at the point of the cutting is the join. Do you understand that? If you notice those photographs, at the point where the thumb is cut, the other thumb joins that cut. That means the people will connect at the point of the cut, at the point of the violence inflicted on them, at the point of being, you know, that's why the 9, you know, that kind of thing behind multiplying it 9 times, you know, as a, yeah.
So just before we, you know, take few questions which are already there.
We are already at the end.
Yeah, I think there are already questions. So I have just 2 more like quick questions. One is, I know that you're a feminist, and I understand, from where you're coming. So in these photographs that you've done, do you have any specific feminist underpinnings, like in terms of reading them, or are you reading them as masses or multiples or people, or
No, I think really... Arshia, I would not. I mean, I would not separate. I would not exclude. I think this what for me is interesting is that all those things are in it. You know, there are some things. For example, when the 2 hands join, like in Sea Creature, okay, a single image. When you join it, just look at the energy that comes. At the point of the joining is when the 2 hands join. If you will notice, there's a single eye-like thing over there. Yeah, in Sea Creature. Yeah, right. Between the 2 hands, you know, you have to notice that. So the interesting thing is that, you know, so feminist things, you know, vagina symbolisms, I as that, but I also as the I, but it's an ungendered I also. It can be gendered. So I'm actually never happy with single meanings out of anything. You know, the more the meanings can pile up, the more the image reverberates, you know, with all these things. The more it speaks to X, Y, Z, people, you know, because people relate according to their own, you know, and nobody's excluded from these things. The men are not excluded, the women are not excluded, the masses are not excluded, the marginalized people are not excluded, because they're all there. You understand that? And I don't want to exclude anybody. I want to join and connect, and that's so much to do with the way I want to do things, or the way I want to conceive of work, you know, as a structural thing.
So we have a Mithu Sen. Are you on, Mithu? Can we hear you?
On. Mithu's on. Unmute.
Tell me. Me too.
Mithu, I think you're. Okay. We can't hear you. Can you hear? I think the mic is off. Mithu, your mic is off.
I am saying that I'm always on.
Okay. All right. Hello, Mithu. Welcome. Nice to have you. Yeah.
Oh, I think I sent you the question, but again, Anita mentioned that she used that monochromatic black and white things even when she cut the meat and all, so to avoid the fetish of it. But I was wondering that blood is also a reality. Is it? Can it be considered as fetish? And how, as an artist, you know, like, I don't know, like, if I'm, yeah. So that is my question. How we can call blood as fetish when it's...
No, so can I answer that?
Yeah.
Of course, no. Of course it's real, yeah. Me too. The thing, but you know, this is the thing. You know, as an artist, one can choose to emphasize some aspect of reality and some aspect. I mean, you know, I can choose to do that. No, I can choose to minimize the fetishization of something. I can choose to emphasize the let's say the conceptual aspect of something. I can choose to do that, you know, and I in those things I choose to do that.
No, that is for sure. I was just wondering, because the word for me, my maybe it can be my lack of, you know, understanding of the language, but like the fetish always is connected with the word of, you know, like the sexualizing, you know, like kind of it's related. So blood is not really, but like to me at least, blood is not only about that. So when you use that word fetish, I just thought like in
Yeah,
related to blood.
I can agree. But as I said that,
I'm
see,
not talking about you like as an artist. Of course, artists can choose
yeah,
to, but like when you mention or when you relate that word blood with fetish, that was my concern. That
okay, yeah.
how, because for me blood always comes in some different way, maybe more as a violence.
Yeah.
So,
See why, I mean, I can say only about why I didn't make it in color. Yeah, those photos. Because for me, what was is that you can actually, I want to emphasize especially in the meat words, I want to emphasize the word aspect of it, not the flesh. It's made out of flesh, but I don't want to, I don't
Sensate.
want to people
Yeah.
to be hung up on the blood and the meat aspect of it. Yeah, I want to take it in another direction. I want to take, so that's why I did it like that. Yeah, if you want to take it in another direction, you can do it. I mean, it's yep.
So there was a question from Tasneem Mehta.
Yeah.
Tasneem, hi Tasneem, lovely to have you on board. So she wanted to know how you selected the images for this particular body of work. Your
Okay, so
selection.
as I said, there's two rolls of film, and when examining the negatives, I can make the connections. I can see that which frame they can. So there was no, and out of those two rolls, this is the body of work that I was able to make. Out of just that one day's or let's say one morning's my performance, Rajan's shooting, and two rolls of film, and so this is the body of work that came out of that. And then of course the selections are made out of, as I said, out of the story of Eklavya, out of the fact that there's this moon that appears in the mouth, which and so that kind of a thing. So then so the work came out of recognizing those things within whatever was shot, and was able and to make some work out of it. Yeah, which is why there's not that much. There are only three. How much is there's Offering, there's Sea Creature, there's Via Negativa, and there's Eklavya. There's only four works actually that have come out of that.
So we have a question from Georgina,
Yeah.
which is like, my question was about the Arjuna and the Krishna battle sequence when Krishna opens his mouth and the whole universe is there. I want to ask you, in context to our current situation, how would you read that validation? This is from Georgina Maddox.
Okay, see, I mean, Georgina, like in the current situation, how I can read that thing? Well, these are the mythical stories. It's the mythical stories about the fact that, and I know these stories, yeah? It's not, and that's why for me it was like it was shocking, yeah? That image was a real shocker. That one, the moon, which is, we know, I mean, moon, what is the connection of the moon? The moon has connection with so many of the, I mean, all poets have, waxed regarding the moon as this kind of impossible thing that you can desire. So much of Sher Shairi has been written around the moon. So many songs have been sung. And on the other hand, the fact that yes, when Krishna opened his mouth and you could see the whole universe inside the mouth. So these are the connections to think that. To think of an image or to think of that kind of a moment also where you can expand to that extent, because it's a very expansive kind of a to even think of that moment where a human being can expand to that thing. I mean, it was quite amazing, yeah. Just as an art, just as an image, just as a thing that has happened by accident. But to be able to reach that, because these things don't happen often, So, as I said, yes, I'm aware of that. I'm very much aware of the fact of the Krishna, the whole cosmos inside your being, via the moon. for sure. That's why the images, I mean, for me, it's one of the most interesting things that I've done as an artist, because can you imagine that? I'm still in wonder of that moment of that such a thing can happen actually as a.
What are some of the things that you've been preoccupied or pondering with during this lockdown?
Oh, look, I see in the lockdown, I've just been with myself, right? So what I've been doing, and I've not done that much, but I've been scratching poems onto black painted surface, yeah. So like the wire works that I used to do, where text was written by black lines which were covered with velvet, but it was steel wire. But here this time I'm writing the same kind of text, but with a fine dry point like etching needle, right? So with that fine etching needle, I'm actually scratching instead of it being a physical thing. It's a negative thing. You understand that? The wire work is each thing is a wire. It's a physical thing. It's a solid thing, right? The text is solid. Here, the text is totally like a scratch. It's a fine etched line on a surface and scratched on a paint surface. Yeah. But a similar thing, yeah, it's a similar thing. You won't be able to read the text, but you can see a lot of fine lines. But it's actually a poems written as an obsessive kind of writing.
So I had another question, although you've kind of answered it a bit. But being a votive object, does the act of darshan, the way we understand it, the unique concept of seeing God in a reciprocal exchange between the God and the devotee, evoke an ethical interpretation of the work, like ethics, so which is something that really led me to kind of write about your work in this particular way, the ethical implications of what it means.
Actually, I don't know about that so much. For me, what is nice is this totally taking away the religion from the thing. I love the fact that it's in my hands like that. Oh, hello, here, yeah. These are the eyes. I want to show you. Okay, here. So what I want to show you is, can you see this? Can you see these eyes?
Yes.
Hello? Can you guys see it?
Yes, we can see it, Anita.
Yeah.
We can see
Okay.
it.
So now it's in a parat, yeah? And this is the way one cleans. This is the way one cleans the rice. This is the way one cleans, it's in the same parat in which you cook. And so this domesticity, I want to domesticate the sacred. I want to domesticate it. I want to make it in my kitchen. I want women to claim it. So this is the way I actually work. You have to clean the eyes, you have to wash them, you have to dry them, you have to, this is what you do. And this is what we do when we are making, pulao, and also rice ko usko sara so saaf karna padta hai sab kuch. So what is interesting for me is to just to bring down the sacred into the most mundane level, into domesticity, into daily life. And also to take, because if you look carefully, all our rituals, all those old songs that women used to sing, is connected with domesticity. It's connected with all these things where you're in a activity which is partly ritualized, partly repetitive, and repetition is an important thing. Like when I use it's a lot of repetition. Yeah, you repeated gestures, repeated, all these things are connected to, I think, the secret of actually living with having ingested tradition inside you, and being healthy without an overemphasis on the psyche as our only recourse to health. Psychic health as the only recourse to health. No. I mean, I think emotional health and everything is so much connected to the way we involve with daily life, with rituals, with daily life, with how how beautiful and how simple our daily life can be. And I think, while working with all these eyes and all that, this is what I enjoy. This is what connects me to something very simple, basically. And,
What are the changes that will happen after this? So he's
how can
asking after isolation.
I mean, look, it's depends, how deeply you've been affected by something. Basically, changes only happen when you are very deeply affected by something. So depends, it depends on because I mean, we are all not on this road, no, walking. Supposing we were to walking 300 miles on the road,
It's true.
that would really affect you. That would make incredible change, and I hope that will make incredible changes in people's perception. But I mean, sitting in the studio, being, of course, being with oneself, and so it's an interior time. Yes, it's a very interior time. But it depends entirely on how deeply you are affected by something uh, for any real change to happen. I mean, small changes are okay, Well, that keeps happening. But
Sure. Shalini, any other questions? Anything that you wanted to add?
If Anita would further like to discuss any of our other works, then it will be fantastic.
ah, no, I mean,
I have a question. So your work, the eye, it keeps appearing from the wall, and I'm just thinking, I mean, of course, the obsession with the eye itself. So, like, how do you think that, any future plans in terms of using it or?
Actually, I don't know, which is why, as you know, there are very few works. Yeah, there are only, as I said, 4 bodies of photos, and that also is a day's work, basically. Yeah. So with the eyes, as I said, very often I think that, oh, I haven't done anything with the eyes for a long time, but it's a certain set of what I say, emotional as well as every kind of thing that can happen, the outside world and the inside world connecting, and a certain emotional climate that makes me do things, Otherwise, whatever you may call it, I'm lazy or I'm not, I can't work like, I can't, I can't will myself to do things. I don't will myself to do things. I mean, I don't wait, but there are things that come together, and when the outside and the inside comes together, then work happens. And when the work happens, then I work on it. When the work happens in my head, then I
Yes.
then I physically labor to make it happen. But it has to happen in your head.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this was wonderful. We had some
I hope.
amazing participants. Yes. Any
I
more
can't see
questions?
any. How many people?
There are about 40.
We have about 50 right now. We went up.
Nice. Hello to everybody. Hi, I can't see you guys, but nice that you're all there.
Yeah.
So
Anything
maybe
else?
then, yeah, Anita, anything else that you wanted to add or
No,
share?
provoke me, provoke me, and then.
Absolutely. So wonderful. Since we are here and I'm seeing the ceiling, can you talk a little bit about the building that you have? You're in your studio and just about,
Oh no, another time.
maybe
Now
show us
that.
a little bit, maybe not,
But
not,
you
maybe
can
show
already
us a
catch a
bit,
little
yeah.
glimpse of, because this is the kitchen. This is actually why I'm sitting here is because the lockdown. This has been primarily the space that I've actually been occupying, and so it was nice because this is the kitchen. This is the kitchen table. I'm sitting on the dining table, and this is where I spent a lot of time actually in the last 2 months. So you can see that.
Sure. So, yes, Shalini, did you want to say something?
I'm good. Thank you, Anita, and thank you, Arshia. It's always wonderful to see you, and we've got this new platform, and which is amazing to reach out to all these people who are interested to hear us. And thank you both for doing this. for being here. I hope to see you when all this is over.
I know. My God, yeah, we need a party.
The party.
10 people.
Shalini, we need a
Once this damn thing is over, we need a, we can sit 6 feet away, but we need something.
I think that's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool,
Definitely.
lovely. Thank you both. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You
And
know.
for everyone who's not visited, please go to www.mashindia.com and view our exhibition. Would love to hear from you. And lots of love from me. And I'm in San Francisco and, a bit stranded over here, waiting to come home. So stay safe, everyone. And thank you, Anita. Thanks, Shalini, for this amazing platform. And just to tell the audiences, next Sunday, same time, we'd like you to tune in. But with us, we'll have Prajakta Potner speak about her body of work and how she actually made it, which is going to be super interesting. So please do join us then. And thank you.
Next Sunday, no? Coming Sunday,
next Sunday, same time. So we are claiming this slot, 11:30 slot Sunday. So please join us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anita. Thank
Bye,
you.
lovely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.